Hi, I'm Kristin, and I'm a certified Lamaze childbirth educator. This is a free online series of childbirth education classes based on the Lamaze Healthy Birth Practices. You'll get the most value by watching all the classes in the series in order, and you can visit my channel for the full playlist. If you find these video classes helpful, please like the video and subscribe to this channel, and consider donating via PayPal using the link in the description. If you'd like to take group childbirth classes in person with me, there's also a link in the description that shows you how to sign up. As always, keep in mind that the content in these classes does not constitute medical advice. Let's get started.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back for our fourth class of childbirth education for your best birth. We are here in class 4, and like I've said before, you will get the most value from these classes if you watch them in order and watch them from beginning to end. I promise you will learn something in every video, and they will empower you, they will give you confidence, and they will make you feel like you are ready to take on this birth journey. So let's jump into a recap. So in class 1, we learned the ways to have a healthy birth are, if possible, let your birth start naturally. Keep moving throughout labor to help your baby move down and help you stay comfortable. Have your birth partner support you throughout your labor and birth. If possible, let labor and birth happen without medical intervention. Avoid lying on your back during labor and birth. Follow your instincts when laboring and pushing your baby out. Keep your baby with you after birth and try to breastfeed. And always surround yourself with people who support your wishes for birth and breastfeeding. We've talked a lot about these different things, these different ways of having a healthy birth throughout the series. And I encourage you, if you have not watched the previous 3 episodes, please stop this video and go back and start with class 1, because you will learn so much. This is just simply the foundation, and you will understand all of the details of each one of these ways of having a healthier birth when you've watched the entire series of classes in order. All right, so recap from class 2. What's the best way to have the birth you want? Make a birth plan. That is the most powerful thing that you can do, is make a birth plan. Because when you do that, you essentially are asking yourself, what's important to me during my labor and my birth and after my baby is born? And you will learn so much about all of the different things that you will be asked, the various procedures that may be offered to you, medical interventions that come up during your labor and birth, and the newborn procedures. These are things you may never have thought about before. So it's really important to sit down and think about these things and make informed decisions. A birth plan tells your care providers what you want and don't want during your labor and birth. It specifies how you want to labor and push your baby out at the birthing place, and what procedures you want or don't want after your baby is born. It also has details of your wishes if there are birth complications. It's so important to not avoid the tough stuff. You may not want a C-section, a cesarean section, and that's okay. But you should think about what you would like to have happen if there is a complication and you need to have a C-section. So you will find that in the video description, I have 2 links to 2 free documents that will help you create your own birth plan. So I encourage you to check those out. Please make the most of them. Your midwife or OB or labor and delivery nurse will probably ask you in the last few weeks of your pregnancy, what is your birth plan? We would like to see it. So they want to work with you on this, so it's very important to have that. And then another recap from class 3. You want to help your baby down the birth canal. And what we're learning through studies and through anecdotes with very experienced labor and delivery nurses is that mothers should not rest reclining late in pregnancy. At 32 weeks or later, your baby will turn head down to prepare for birth, and you will probably notice that. You want to help your baby find its way down. Your baby takes a very active role in the birth process, and it wants to find the right way down that birth canal. It wants to turn itself. It wants to be in just the right position. So do not recline when you are resting. Now, if you're talking about you're reclining for maybe 5 minutes here or there, that's fine. But don't recline in a recliner or a lounge chair or on the couch propped up with pillows. Do not recline in the third trimester for long periods of time. Don't do it while watching TV, while hanging out with friends, while resting. You just don't want to do that because it makes it so much harder for your baby to find its way down the birth canal. So what can you do? I'll get to the positions where you can stay comfortable in just a moment. What you do want to do every day is to sit on a birth ball, if you have one available to you, and rock and sway on it. And this sort of shimmying movement helps baby find its way and make the turn that it needs to make in order to move down the birth canal. So that's something that if you have a birth ball, and maybe if you can borrow one from a friend if you don't have one, lots of us have them. Ask around, and you might be able to find someone who would be willing to give theirs up for a couple of months. Get your steps in. Walk every day. I think the health recommendation is 10,000 steps a day. Try to make sure you hit that mark. That is so important. Not only is it good for you and your health, but it also, that shimmying movement, the swaying movement that your hips and your pelvis make as you're walking, helps baby to turn and find its way down. Now, so many of us have office jobs, and we end up sedentary for most of the day. So please be aware of that. And if you have a sit-down job, try to make sure that you get up at least 5 minutes every hour to walk around. And if you can, take steps. If you if you work in a building that has multiple floors, try to take the steps when you can. If you get really tired and you need to take the elevator, that's fine. But if you have the energy, try to take the steps whenever possible, because your body needs that exercise and your baby needs that movement in order to be able to find its way down. And do the glute scoot. If you missed the glute scoot, please tune in to the third class in the series, and you'll get to see that demonstrated for you. Another recap from class 3 is how to identify the hard signs of labor. If your water breaks, this could be the beginning of labor, or you may already be in early labor when your water breaks. It could be a big gush, or it could be a slow trickle. It also could be a small amount of liquid that then stops because baby's head could move down and essentially act like a plug in a bathtub and stop that flow for a little while. It will start up again at some point, so you always want to be wearing heavy maternity pads after your water breaks. But your water can break in different ways. It can be a big gush, it can be a slow trickle, it can be just a tiny bit. And always, always remember that you need to have a pen and paper handy to note the acronym COAT or TACO for your care provider. And that is the color of the fluid, the odor of the fluid, the amount of fluid, and the time that your water broke. Your care provider will absolutely want to know this information, so please do make note of it and share that information with your care provider. Regular strong contractions are a good indicator of active labor. So if you're having contractions on a very consistent basis, maybe it's every 10 minutes, maybe it's every 8 minutes, maybe it's every 5 minutes, you have a pretty good idea that you're in active labor. And when those contractions don't go away, when you move around or you change the position if you're lying down, or if you drink some water, and your contractions continue with the same intensity and the same frequency, you'll know you're in active labor. Another thing to remember, I've mentioned this in a previous class, if it is difficult or impossible for you to talk to someone else around you, a loved one, your birth partner, while you are having a contraction, you are probably in active labor. If you're having contractions and you're simply noticing them and you can talk through them, then that is probably pretty early labor, and that's okay. Early labor leads to active labor. So just note that if you can talk through a contraction, you're probably still in pretty early labor. You will know as soon as your contractions get intense enough that you can no longer speak, and you need to take a moment and go inward to focus on the intensity of the contraction. That is most likely active labor. Bloody show. Look for a bloody show. Now, what is bloody show? You do not want dripping blood. Bloody show would be essentially a bright red streak that you would find either on toilet paper when you go to the bathroom or on your maternity pad or a maxi pad that you may be wearing. If you're seeing a red streak, that is most likely bloody show. And that is a very, very good sign that your cervix is working hard. It is effacing, which is thinning. And it's probably dilating. So I do want to make it clear, though, that if you are worried in any way and you say, oh my goodness, is this bloody show or is it something serious I need to be worried about, please do make a call to your labor and delivery. And you can call your labor and delivery. You should call them if your water breaks. You can call them when you're having strong contractions, obviously between contractions. And you can also call them when you have bloody show and describe it to them. And also, if you have a doula who's going to be helping you during the birth, definitely keep in touch with your doula. Give her a call. Let her know what's going on. You can also text her photos. We love getting photos because it helps us to understand what stage our clients are in labor. So do not feel embarrassed or afraid of sharing photos of these kind of more intimate things. We have seen it all, and we are happy to help you. Another recap from class 3, labor comfort measures. You can make labor and birth more comfortable with these comfort techniques. Slow breathing and visualization, massage pressure points, and the use of a TENS unit, which I highly recommend, at least trying. And I recommend trying a TENS unit before you go into labor so you understand how it works, what it feels like. If it's something that you can tolerate, it can be very helpful. Soaking in a warm tub or taking a shower. And of course, do not soak in a tub at home if your water has broken. Stick to the warm shower at that point. A hot like rice bag, bean bag, any of the kinds of bags that are safe to microwave for a minute or two. You can use those and place those on the mother's lower back or on her hips if she's having hip pain. You can also keep one of those bags in the refrigerator, get it nice and cold, and then place that on the back of the mother's neck if she is feeling overheated during labor. It's really important, like I mentioned in our first screen today, that a mother stay upright and she move around during labor. So change positions and use a birth ball, and the mother will find that she is so much more comfortable when she's able to move around and be upright. For a lot of mothers who are in labor, it can be torture to sit down or lie down, absolute torture. Just something our bodies tell us not to do it, and it does not feel good. We want to be moving around, and that's because biologically and instinctively we know that we need to be upright, we need to be moving around to help that baby move its way around in the pelvis and get oriented in the right way for the birth canal. Using a rebozo. So if you tuned in to a previous class, you got to see how a rebozo works. And using a comb. And this is where you hold just a cheap plastic comb with the teeth in the palm of the hand, and the mother can squeeze it in one or both hands during a contraction, and it can often bring quite a bit of relief. I want to introduce an acronym, BRAIN, B-R-A-I-N, and this is so important. brain is what empowers you to make the decisions that you often need to make while you're in labor and in the pushing stage and after you have your baby. The letter B in brain stands for benefits. What are the benefits of a procedure? So when you're approached by your care provider and they say, we would like to do this, you can ask that question, what are the benefits of doing that? R stands for risks. What are the risks of a procedure? Your next question, then of course, after you ask the benefits, is what are the risks? A stands for alternatives, and this is where you can ask them, what are the alternatives? What else could we do besides that thing? I stands for intuition. What does that mother's intuition tell her to do? N stands for nothing. What if we do nothing? Because sometimes in birth, because it can be a very long process, sometimes it's just a matter of waiting. And there are labor and delivery departments, and there are doctors, and there are nurses who get impatient. And sometimes they just want to get this birth moving faster. And if they come to a mother, for instance, and they say to her, we'd like to give you Pitocin now because we feel like we need to increase your contractions. We need to make them more productive. We need to bring them closer together. This is where the mother and her birth partner, and if she has a doula with her, come together and they ask and discuss these questions. What are the benefits, in this particular instance, of having Pitocin? What are the risks of having Pitocin? What are the alternatives to Pitocin? And what does the mother's intuition tell her about possibly having Pitocin during her birth? And then, what if we did nothing? What if we simply waited rather than trying to push things a little bit faster with Pitocin? Here's the big question that a lot of moms have when they're pregnant. What if you go over your due date? And I will tell you from my experience working with moms who go over their due dates, this can be a really, really challenging time of pregnancy. Family and friends can be very impatient. They can check in every single day and say, are you going to have that baby? When's that baby going to be born? When are we ever going to see the baby? Maybe you should go be induced. Why isn't the baby coming? Maybe you should have the baby checked. What if there's something wrong? It can be an extremely stressful time for a mom. And often moms have to kind of go dark when they go over their due date. Where they have to just tell their friends and family, I need some quiet time now. I need to focus on me and my baby. And that is okay. A mom is allowed to do that. And the family and friends need to just be patient because nature is running its course. So, what are the options when a mother goes over her due date? As we know, we talked about in a previous class that pregnancy can go as long as 42 weeks. While, most of the time we're told that it's 40 weeks long, it can and does often go over 40 weeks. At 42 weeks or approaching 42 weeks, your care provider will strongly recommend inducing labor. What does that look like? After your due date, and this could be even as soon as your due date or a day or two after your due date, your care provider may say, hey, can I do a membrane sweep? You can say no to a membrane sweep if you would like to. And I'll talk a little bit more about what a membrane sweep is. During a cervical check, so this is when you're going in for a regular checkup, and your care provider, whether it's your midwife or a labor and delivery nurse or an OB, is meeting with you and listening to the baby and asking you how things are going and taking your blood pressure. Your care provider may do a cervical check to see if you're dilated. Now, you can say no to a cervical check if you want to, and we'll talk more about that. So if you do say, sure, yeah, let's do a cervical check. Let's see if I have any dilation going on. At that time, if you agree to a membrane sweep, your provider will then use a finger in the cervix, and they will stick it in, and it could be uncomfortable. They can separate the amniotic sac from the lower part of the uterus, and this is in the hopes that it will release prostaglandins that could start labor. And like I mentioned, you can always say no to a membrane sweep And you can also tell your care provider at every visit before you even get on the exam table, I do not want a membrane sweep. Now, if you're fine with it, that's great. But a lot of moms don't want that interference. They just want birth to start naturally, and that is okay. A membrane sweep can be uncomfortable, and it may not start labor. I have heard of moms who have had multiple membrane sweeps, and it has not started labor for them, and they still have to go through the uncomfortable procedure. So at 41 weeks, your provider may suggest inserting a Foley bulb into your cervix. Now, what is a Foley bulb? I do want to reiterate here, you can say no to a Foley bulb. A Foley bulb is a small balloon that can expand your cervix and possibly start contractions. So it's sort of an artificial way of stretching the cervix out to kind of get that process started, hopefully release some prostaglandins and get your body thinking about effacing and dilating the cervix. Inserting the bulb can be uncomfortable and it may not start labor. Again, I have known moms who have had Foley bulbs inserted and it does not start their labor. Another thing I want to add about the Foley bulb is that after it is inserted, you are then sent home and you live your normal life with this small bulb in your cervix. So I don't believe that you can feel it. You maybe have some kind of sensation that there's something there, but there's not a really strong feeling that it's there. And then you just kind of live with it there in the hopes that it will start labor. So when your care provider recommends induction, I want to help you understand that there is no need to induce labor with Pitocin unless you're at 42 weeks of pregnancy. So we're talking truly 2 exact weeks after your due date. Or your water broke 24 hours or more ago. Those are the only 2 instances that I am aware of where your care provider will really insist that you should have Pitocin to induce labor. If neither one of those things have happened for you, then you can say no to Pitocin and induction, and you can wait until you go into labor naturally or until you reach 42 weeks. Now, let me talk about Pitocin a little bit. In our first class, we talked about the hormones, the pregnancy hormones that help pregnancy happen and help kick off labor and help mom and baby bond. Now, one of them is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the love hormone, and that's the one that we produce in our bodies when we are touching someone we love or someone we love is touching us. When you stroke someone's cheek, when you're hugging someone, you are releasing oxytocin, and it helps you feel more bonded to that person, and it brings about a sense of happiness. Pitocin is the synthetic version of oxytocin. So think about Pitocin is essentially, it was synthesized in a laboratory by a drug company to look and act just like oxytocin to the human body. So the one big difference is that when labor is induced with Pitocin, it is much stronger in, the body has a much stronger reaction to Pitocin than it does to oxytocin. So when a mother is induced with oxytocin, she has to have an IV and then an IV bag. So she is strapped to an IV pole. She can't move around without that following her around. And also she will, in a relatively short period of time, start having pretty darn intense contractions. And they are more intense than you would have if you went into labor naturally. So that is one of the things, is that Pitocin can be very difficult to tolerate because it can result in very strong contractions. And often mothers will feel that they absolutely need some kind of pain relief in order to feel better. so that they can cope with these very, very strong contractions, because it's definitely going to be much stronger than labor that starts naturally. Okay. If you're not comfortable with the procedure your care provider wants you to do, you can decline it. Here are some procedures you can say no to. A cervical check. You can always tell them you don't want a cervical check. Some women find them very uncomfortable, and it's okay to say no. A membrane sweep. We talked a little bit about that previously. Induction with Pitocin, which, like I talked about, that's synthetic oxytocin. Epidural. That's one of the pain relief options that you would have during labor. And Pitocin to increase contractions. As I mentioned earlier, there are times when some hospitals, some labor and delivery departments, some doctors, some labor and delivery nurses can get impatient and say, gosh, this labor is just not moving very quickly, and I'd really like to see a little bit more progress. So you know what? We think that you should start on Pitocin. And you may be in active labor and doing just fine. And so you can decide. If you feel like your labor is progressing very nicely and you're feeling good about where you and your baby are and you're coping well, then you can say no to Pitocin. If you're feeling like, you're okay with the increased contractions, with the increased intensity of those contractions, and you're okay with an IV and the possible need for pain relief after Pitocin kicks in, then you can go ahead and have Pitocin. But just be aware that it can be very intense and you may feel the need for pain relief later. And that we'll talk a little bit about that in common medical interventions in just a moment. So what are some ways that you can induce labor naturally? As I talked about, oxytocin, the love hormone, this can help you start labor. You naturally release oxytocin when you're touching, hugging, massaging, or someone you love is touching you, hugging you, or massaging you. It makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You release oxytocin when you are naked with your partner. Just think about all the ways when you feel very good about being with the people you love. You are probably releasing oxytocin at that moment. Nipple stimulation is a wonderful way to help increase contractions early in labor, and it could possibly help kick off contractions if you have not started labor just yet. So that could mean whatever you're comfortable with. Your nipples may be very sensitive late in pregnancy. That's okay. It may be simply just lightly touching them. It may be rubbing them. You may want to try a breast pump with them. It's up to you and whatever you feel that you can tolerate. There are times, though, when nipple stimulation can help kick off labor, and it can help intensify contractions. Sex to completion can also release oxytocin, and there's another benefit from that. Prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are found in semen, and when you have sex to completion, not only are you sharing that oxytocin that can help kickstart labor, but the prostaglandins that are in semen, if they are surrounding the cervix, they can soften the cervix and encourage it to thin and then to dilate. As I mentioned, semen contains prostaglandins, but the number one rule, once your water has broken, never introduce anything into the vagina. Do not have sex if your water has broken. Do not take a bath if your water has broken. So please remember that. If your water has not broken and you're eager to start contractions, try having regular sex. You can have it once a day, twice a day, however many times you can tolerate. It needs to be to completion, and you want the cervix to be exposed to the prostaglandins and semen. Keep moving. Keep walking. Keep doing lunges. Keep doing your sexy shimmying and swaying on your birth ball. Hug your partner and sway as much as you can, and just relax the whole time. You want to be very relaxed. You want to be continue to visualize having your baby in your arms, and you want to feel very loved. You want your partner to help you feel very loved, and that can help induce labor as well. When you're moving, walk on flat surfaces and upstairs. So both are totally fine. You could absolutely be walking stairs at work. You could be walking stairs at home. That helps. And like I've talked about, that asymmetrical movement also helps shimmy baby down and help baby find the right position to move through the birth canal. And like I mentioned, do your sexy rocking and swaying on the exercise ball. As I like to point out, the best way to get baby out is probably the way baby got in there, with a lot of movement. So let's talk about some common medical interventions. The membrane sweep, which I mentioned earlier. During a cervical check in the last 2 weeks of pregnancy, your care provider may ask you if they can do a membrane sweep. And this is where they would use a finger to separate the amniotic membrane from the uterus. And this may release prostaglandins that can start labor. It may also not be effective. It all depends on you and your body and your baby's readiness. You can tell your provider ahead of time if you do or do not want membrane sweeps or a membrane sweep. Pitocin, like I mentioned, synthetic oxytocin. This is always administered via IV, and it can start labor. It can induce labor if a mother is at 42 weeks. But it also can increase contractions if the care provider feels that the labor is not progressing fast enough. In many cases, really, labor just takes a long time, especially for a first baby, a mother's first baby. Lots of times you can just wait, and those contractions will pick up on their own, and then mother feels so much more in control of her contractions and her labor. Another common medical intervention, restricting the mother's movements, and this goes against what I talked about in the very first screen, where I said, do not lie on your back unless you absolutely have to while you're in labor. Restricting a mother's movements and making her lie in bed can, for many mothers when they're in labor, can be torturous. It can hurt, it can feel extremely uncomfortable, and it can feel wrong on every level. So I do know from my own experience and from working with other mothers that when they are forced to be on their backs, even for a short time, even for fetal monitoring, it can be so difficult. So if at all possible, if that mother is able to be up and moving around, she should not be restricted to the bed. Lying flat is not great for the baby because the baby gets very heavy, and its body applies pressure to the mother's aorta, and then that can restrict blood flow to the baby. That's a huge problem. And also, if the mother is and we'll talk more about epidural in a little bit. If she has an epidural, she needs to be on her sides in order to prevent the aorta from being compressed by the baby. And because she is lying on her sides rather than, and she's restricted to the bed, the baby will have more of a hard time finding its way down the birth canal and getting turned into the right position. So I really, really very much encourage you to try to not be restricted to bed. If you're told that you need to lie down for fetal monitoring, ask them how long. If it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you can say no to them. But if you're okay with them having you lie down, then tell them, okay, no more than that amount of time, no more than 15 or 20 minutes. I need to be up moving around. An epidural. I've talked a little bit, I mentioned epidural a moment ago. That's an anesthetic that's given to the mother. Essentially, the procedure is an anesthesiologist comes in and inserts a needle and then a small tube in between the vertebrae in the mother's back, and then administers medication that numbs the mother's body from that point down to the very bottoms to her toes. So she is unable to walk around. She's unable to do much except move from side to side in the bed. It is a very effective painkiller. It does not affect the baby negatively, which is nice, because the last thing you want is for a baby to feel dopey in the womb. As we know, our passenger, our sweet little baby, is an active part of the birth process, and you don't want a baby that's dopey in utero. So the epidural is an anesthetic that can help the mother rest. If she's been laboring a long time, sometimes she gets very tired and she feels like, I just cannot tolerate any more contractions. She can have an epidural, and her contractions will continue. They may slow down some, and baby may have some trouble moving into the right birth position, in which case the mom will need some help navigating that because she won't be able to get up and walk around. But she will be able to rest. Mothers are able to actually sleep when they have an epidural, and labor will continue during that time while she's sleeping. So what are the side effects of epidural? Mother cannot walk. It affects her legs from about the middle of about her belly button down to her toes, and she is restrained to the hospital bed. And like I mentioned, this can slow baby's ability to move down the birth canal. The mother will lose bladder control. I believe in all cases that a mother who has had an epidural will absolutely have to have a catheter inserted into her urethra so that urine can be drained while she has that epidural, and even after the epidural is turned off, because her feeling will not return in her legs for quite some time. Itchiness and nausea. This does not happen to all mothers. It only happens to a smaller percentage of moms. They may feel like their skin is itchy, or they may feel nauseous, like they just want to throw up. In that case, the epidural medication can be adjusted downward a little bit, or it can even be stopped and other medications can be tried. The epidural can cause headaches in some mothers. And it could also cause temporary nerve damage. This is something that will wear off with time. It can vary, though, as to how long it takes for it to wear off. The mother may feel temporary numbness in parts of her body for a little while afterward. And an epidural can slow down labor. It can slow contractions some, and in that instance, care providers will sometimes say, okay, well, it slowed our contractions a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and start giving you Pitocin now? And that's the synthetic oxytocin I mentioned earlier that really intensifies contractions. Now, it's up to the mother to decide. Pitocin can, of course, increase the contractions and keep labor moving even while she's resting with an epidural. She will not necessarily be able to feel those more intense contractions. She may feel pressure, but she will not so much be feeling the pain. Now, I do want to point out here, this is important to note, that epidural does not work 100% in all women. There are some women, I have had experience that I just remembered with a mother who had an epidural, and it did not knock out the pain on one part of her body. I can't remember which side it was, but she had a side of her body where she was still feeling the contractions. And so it is possible that the epidural won't work 100% for everyone. Now, it is usually pretty effective for most moms, but there will be exceptions. Some other common medical interventions. So I'm going to start from the top left. A HEP lock, and this is a question you will have to review for your birth plan. And a HEP lock is it is a needle that is inserted with a little tube into a prominent vein, usually on top of the hand or somewhere on the arm, and it's taped down. It's not connected to anything at that moment when it is inserted, but it's there in case of complications or in case the mother wants an epidural or will need Pitocin. Now, some hospitals and birth centers more hospitals will encourage having a hep block inserted at the moment you go into the hospital, the moment you're admitted to labor and delivery. I never liked hep blocks myself personally. That was my thing, because when you're laboring, you don't want to have to worry about having this thing taped to your hand and making sure that you don't hit it while you're moving around. So I chose not to do it. Some moms are fine with it. Other moms aren't. So you make that decision for yourself. Lots of times, if you have a hep block, that means that it makes it that much easier for you to have Pitocin, for your care provider to encourage you to have Pitocin, which again can be sort of the first step in the cascade of interventions, where once it's easy to do Pitocin and they do Pitocin, that can feel overwhelming. So mom suddenly needs an epidural. Once she has an epidural, that can slow down her labor, in which case they kick up the Pitocin, and that increases the contractions. And then there can be other complications from that. And ultimately, it can lead to other problems delivering baby. So you have to make that judgment call for yourself. Continuous fetal monitoring. Now, you will be monitored at pretty much anywhere you go where you're having your baby. Even if you have your baby at home and you have a midwife, your midwife will still want to do regular fetal monitoring. And it's usually about every hour they will do a fetal monitor for 10 or 15 minutes, for instance. And usually it is a mobile device that they can use to listen. So you can be standing up, moving around, and as long as you're, if you can just stand still for a moment, they will, and actually for intermittent monitoring, it's actually a much shorter thing. It may be a little bit less than 10 minutes that they'll do it. So they want you to kind of, stop moving enough so that they can hold this little Doppler fetal monitor to your belly, find baby's heartbeat, listen to it, track it, keep track of what it's sounding like, make sure baby's okay, and then they'll leave you alone to continue to labor. What we're looking at here in the top center is continuous fetal monitoring. And it's pretty clear from this photo that this mom is probably planning on having an epidural if she has not already had an epidural. And so she is pretty much confined to bed, and so they keep this monitor, there are 2 belts, they keep this monitor on her pretty much the entire labor. And it can be uncomfortable, it's not great. One monitor monitors the contractions, and the other monitor monitors baby's heart rate. And you'll see that little machine that looks like a printer back there in the background, and that will be keeping track, and it will kick out a little piece of paper with almost like when they track earthquake activity. It pretty much, that's what it looks like. You'll be able to look at the piece of paper and see the intensity of the contractions and how frequent they are. Because continuous fetal monitoring really does require the mother to be stuck in bed, it's not generally recommended, simply because we want mom to be able to move around, to be active, to change positions so that she can help baby move down. If mom is stuck in bed like this mom here, it's going to be harder for baby to find its way out. So on our top right is the fetal scalp monitor. And this is, in my experience, this is really only used when there is some concern. Not great concern, but a little bit of concern for baby's well-being. Maybe labor is taking a while. Maybe the pushing phase is taking a while. The care providers may decide that they want to get a better look or feel for how baby is doing. So they will take this device. You can see it up there. It actually looks like a screw with a very pointy end. They will reach into the mother's cervix and vagina and into the uterus, and they will actually attach this and give it a little twist, and it will attach to the top of baby's scalp. And this will give the doctors constant fetal monitoring, so they will know exactly what baby's heart rate is and how baby's doing. And this is so that they don't necessarily have to do constant fetal monitoring, and mom still wants to be able to move around. Baby, it will be fine. Baby's not harmed by it, but there will be a small wound on the top of the baby's head after it's born, and it needs to heal. And then you see in the lower left, those are forceps, and those I have not had the experience of attending a birth where forceps were used, because we relied on other measures, more natural measures, in order to help baby out. But forceps are essentially kind of like salad tongs that are pushed into the mother's body. They grasp the baby's head and they try to pull it out as gently as they can. I do have a family member who was born via forceps delivery, and I know that it was traumatic. I know that it was difficult. I know that it did deform baby's head. Fortunately, babies' heads are very, very plastic, very pliable, and the head will return to normal shape after birth. The middle bottom is vacuum extraction, and this is just exactly what it looks like. It's a small vacuum cup that is placed inside the cervix, inside the vagina, and inside the uterus. They clear out all of the amniotic sac, and then it's pushed onto the baby's head. The suction is then turned on. It suctions onto baby's head. They give it a little pull, and they gently try to pull baby out. And then, of course, on the lower right is cesarean section. And C-section is something that there's certainly nothing wrong with it. I have attended a C-section myself. Sometimes it's the best way to go. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary for the health and well-being of mom and baby. Ultimately, you don't really so much want it. Research has shown in the last few years that repeated C-sections really are not good for mothers. It used to be one of those things that you would hear, once a C-section, always a C-section. But now doctors, OBs, are finding that when you do C-sections, when you do a second one, the scar tissue is not in great shape. And then when you do a third one, the scar tissue is really not in good shape at all. So there's a lot of concern. If a mother were to have 3 C-sections, that would be her limit. And also that she may not be able to deliver vaginally because of the stress that her uterus has gone through, these 3 major surgeries, that it may not tolerate really active labor very well, and the uterus could split at that surgery point if the mother tries to deliver the baby herself. So I'm really, really happy that obstetricians are looking at this realistically and understanding that it's really important that if a mother has a C-section and she decides she wants another baby, she should be allowed to try to have that baby vaginally. She should be allowed to try to push that baby out because it will be better for her body. It will be better for baby. So we try to avoid C-section where we can, but there are definitely instances where it is unavoidable, and it really is the best choice for mom and baby. So let's talk about early breastfeeding basics. Once that baby comes out, we want to introduce it to the breast as soon as possible. And this is another reason why we try to encourage as little intervention in labor and birth as possible, because we want that mom to be, we want her to be very with it. We want her to be aware of her surroundings. We want her to be feeling that oxytocin and having that feeling of love and devotion to her baby. We want her to be feeling that prolactin, where she's feeling like she needs to hold that baby and be there for that baby. And when you do a lot of medical interventions, when you're doing an epidural, when you end up with a C-section, that can limit the mom's ability to really interact with her baby and to feel all of those things from her baby. So try to breastfeed within the first hour after your baby is born. It will be alert and awake during that time. When baby is born, it will probably cry some immediately after it comes out. The baby will be placed on the mother as long as the mother is awake and she's aware and she's in good shape. It will be placed on her chest. It needs to be skin to skin. And it will it will immediately, instinctively look for mom's breast. You will see it rooting around. It will be licking, it will be mouthing, it will be trying to find mom's breast. And you can introduce that baby to the breast as soon as you want. You are not limited to wait any amount of time. But at least try to get that baby on the breast within the first hour of life. It is so incredibly important for that baby to find the breast, to be comforted that way, to get as much colostrum as it can, and to help the mother release prolactin and the other hormones, oxytocin, that she needs in order to really bond with that baby. Be persistent and consistent. Even if your baby doesn't take a full feeding right away, it's still getting important nutrition. You need to keep offering your breast. Those first few days, the first week of life, offer that breast every opportunity. It sounds crazy to always have a baby right there on your breast, but that baby needs it so much. It needs the colostrum in order to get all of your antibodies and to coat its gut and make it the healthiest it can be. And you need that stimulation in your breasts because you need to be able to produce milk for that baby so you can nourish your baby. The mother also, there are some real benefits to breastfeeding your baby. One of them is that each time your baby nurses those first 3 to 5 days, you will feel a lot of cramping in your uterus, and that is normal. I do remember in my own instance that it was actually pretty painful, and I would have to take ibuprofen for it. But the beauty of that cramping is every time my baby would nurse, my uterus would cramp and then return. It was gradually returning to its normal size. So every single time, it was another one of those pain with a purpose kind of moments for me that I realized that when I'm nursing my baby, my uterus is returning to its normal size, and that's what I want. Spend as much time as you can doing skin-to-skin contact with your baby. This can encourage your baby to breastfeed more. Your baby will memorize your scent, and it will be more comforted when it can smell you. It will memorize your face because it will look at you. Babies can only see just, a foot or so in front of them. But if your baby is this close to you, it will see you and recognize you. That memory is imprinted on its mind. And this also applies to dad. Dad should do as much skin-to-skin contact as he can, because baby will bond with him as well and get to know his scent as well. And so when baby's fussy, baby will be able to be comforted by dad because it will recognize dad's face and dad's smell. Refrain from giving your baby a pacifier for at least the first week. You want baby to establish a really strong breastfeeding relationship. And if your baby is rooting, is looking for, it's trying to find anything it can put in its mouth, it's ultimately looking for the breast, just put your baby to the breast. This is the best thing you can do for your baby after it's born, is to put that baby to the breast as much as possible. Some more breastfeeding basics. Keep putting your baby to the breast every few hours if it's really sleepy. You may have to wake baby up. And one of the little tricks is if baby just keeps falling asleep, and this is very, very common, the breast is so comforting to baby, and it knows you already from your scent. It knows who you are because it's been inside of you for so long. It's learning your face. Baby can get so comfortable it can fall asleep very, very quickly. So what you can do is you can flick the bottoms of its little feet gently. Just flick them, wake baby up. Baby will probably start to fuss, but that's okay because you've got the breast right there. You want to put that baby on the breast. Always give it the opportunity to get that colostrum. And always remember, it can be frustrating in those first days of breastfeeding, but do not give up, because I promise you, all babies end up becoming experts at breastfeeding. It only takes a week or two for a baby to say, I've got this. I know exactly what I'm doing here. They know how to latch on. It can take them some time. Some babies are natural, and they just, natural breastfeeders, they just latch on at that very first moment, and they've got it, and there's never any question. Other babies can have trouble with it, and it can be frustrating. But I encourage you not to give up. That baby wants to breastfeed. And if you just keep trying and you surround yourself with people who support your breastfeeding efforts, who will help you latch that baby on, you will be able to have that great breastfeeding relationship with your baby, because that baby will become an expert. It will know exactly how nursing works. Talk to your labor and delivery nurse or a lactation consultant if you're worried that your baby isn't getting enough to eat on the first day. Now, it's unlikely that your baby is going to truly be malnourished because a baby's stomach on its first day is literally, it's so tiny. It's not much bigger than this. And all they really need is that colostrum. So your baby, remember, was putting on a lot of weight before it was born. And babies naturally lose weight after birth. And so your baby still has plenty of nutrients in its body. It's getting nourishment. And the fact that it's getting the colostrum is helping it to stay healthy. So don't worry about your baby not getting what it needs that first day or two, because you're just producing colostrum at that point, and your baby is, it's been putting on fat just precisely for this moment in time when it can be living off of some of those fat reserves. Your colostrum is all your baby needs in the first few days of breastfeeding. So you do not need to supplement with formula. Generally, formula is not recommended for healthy babies that have just been born because their stomachs just simply can't tolerate. They cannot handle that much. They're so tiny. And so you need to let the baby have what it was made to have, and that's the colostrum. Your breast will fill with milk around day 3 or 4 postpartum, and you'll definitely notice that. And once that milk comes in, you'll be wanting to nurse a lot because that will bring you relief so that you don't become engorged, and your baby will be getting all of the calories it needs at that point, and it will be gradually growing the size of its stomach a little bit bigger every single day. And like I mentioned, you don't need to give supplemental formula feedings unless your doctor, your pediatrician tells you that you should supplement with formula. So let's talk about how you do hand expression. So hand expression can be really helpful to relieve engorgement, because once those first few days when your milk comes in, it can be really challenging. You can just feel, your breast can feel hard as a rock, very, very tight and painful. And what you can do is you can get a wet washcloth and you can microwave it for 30 seconds to a minute, but please test it first to make sure it's not too hot. Or you can get a rice bag that's not going to be too heavy for your breast. You can microwave that, make sure it's not too hot. Or you can just simply use your washcloth, hold it under warm water, get it nice and warm in under the faucet, and then squeeze it out really well and place that on your breasts. And that will help relieve some of the engorgement sensation. And then you'll probably want to do some hand expression, because one of the challenges for a brand new baby is that their little mouths are so tiny that this very large engorged breast can be difficult for a tiny little baby. Now, baby and breast will absolutely synchronize, and they will work out the best relationship for them. But in those early days, it can be a little bit challenging. So, like I mentioned, you put warm washcloths or warm rice bags on your breasts in order to soften them and relieve some pain. And then you want to try this technique of hand expression. So you position your thumb above your nipple and your fingers below your nipple. You should make a C shape with your fingers. Then you press your fingers and your thumb back toward your chest. You gently compress your fingers together, and you will see milk squirt out, and you can catch it in a cup and then release it. And then you want to repeat all of those steps in a rhythmic pattern. So I'll go back. Position your thumb above the nipple and your fingers below the nipple. You want to form a C shape with your hand. And then you press your fingers and thumb back toward your chest. You compress your fingers and thumb, and the milk will be expressed. And then you release everything. So you continue to do that. You will absolutely figure out the best way to do it. You'll get into the rhythm of it. And what this helps you to do is to relieve the pressure in your breasts and make your breasts a little bit easier, make your nipples and breasts easier for your baby to latch onto. So one important thing to keep in mind is do not squeeze on the nipple, do not pull the nipple. And hand expression should never hurt. It should be more of a relief feeling. And like I mentioned, use warm compresses or heat on your breasts before you do the hand expressing. And you've got to, keep in mind that milk comes out of many different ducts around the nipple. So they come from ducts inside the breast, and they're all around the nipple area. So you will want to move your fingers around, keeping them in a C shape. Keep the C shape and move it around the breast. Think of it as a clock, and you can kind of think about, okay, I'm going to move counterclockwise today, for instance, and do the expression on those different areas of your breast, and you will be expressing milk from different ducts. If you need a little bit of help getting that going, you may want to think about your baby, hold your baby in the other arm, and look at your baby, smell your baby's clothing. That can often release hormones that will help you to express more milk. Try to do this when you're very, very relaxed. Make sure that you're being taken care of. Ask your partner to help you stay comfortable. Have lots of pillows around you to support your body, your back, your elbows, to support the baby in your arms. Do what you need to do. Listen to relaxing music. Think about things that relax you. Do the breathing that I talked about that activates your vagus nerve, where you take a 4-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. And this will help your body to relax so that you can release more milk. All right, so in our 5th class, what are we going to talk about? What your newborn might look like. Sometimes they come out not looking the way you expected, and that's okay. So we'll talk some more about that. Caring for and soothing your newborn baby. What to expect with postpartum bleeding, and the importance of postpartum rest. I'm so glad you joined me today. Thank you for being part of this class. You are welcome to provide feedback on the video series in the comments below. And please like these video classes and recommend them to a friend. I want to reach as many families and help them as much as I can. Subscribe to this channel for more videos about pregnancy and childbirth and newborn care. You will probably learn some valuable things from what I want to share with you. And if you'd like, and if you're able to, please donate to the channel using the link in the description below. And as always, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to see you in the next class.
If you're located in the Sacramento, California area, you can also take classes with me in person. Watch this tutorial to find out how you can register. To sign up for classes, visit southgaterecandpark.net and visit the Recreation menu. Click on Register for Programs, then scroll down on the next page and click on the Register Now button. Go up to the Activities menu in the upper left-hand corner and click on Special Interest Classes. You'll see Childbirth Education pop up at the top. Click View Sub-Activities to see the available classes, and then click on an individual class to read the description, the dates, and the times. And when you're ready to sign up, click Create an Account in the upper right-hand corner, enter your email address, and then follow the prompts to register. I look forward to seeing you back here at this channel, or in person if you decide to take classes with me. Watch the video series so that you too can have the best birth for your family. Have a beautiful day.